Hello to everyone, and thank you for joining today. My name is Andy White, and I will be your host as we discuss the Epygi call recording solution. The call recording we've had is something we've had for quite some time, but we've had a lot of questions, and not everybody's aware of the flexibility and some of the options that are available. So we wanted to go ahead and get that information out to you. Historically, call recording has been it's often an expensive solution to offer customers, and often not so easy to install because it often requires an extra device on the network or appliance to actually do the recordings. But we want to show you how easy and cost effective the call recording solution can be when used with the Epygi PBX. As far as the agenda, I do have some slides to go through this morning, just a few slides, and then we want to actually show you and demonstrate the recording on the PBX. All right, the call recording is a powerful feature allowing the system to record calls made to and from the extensions on the PBX. It is a licensable feature. It's available on all the Epygi IP PBXs. It allows the calls to be recorded and saved for later playback. It has some flexible storage options. It's easy to configure. You can choose which extensions will have their calls recorded. And optionally, you can also choose if inbound calls are recorded or just outbound calls will be recorded. And the calls can be recorded automatically from each extension, or it can be toggled by simply pressing a record button on the handset. It's easy to configure, so you simply create a recording box, as we refer to it, which is similar to an extension on a system, for example, like extension 700. And then you define the maximum recordings that you want to have on that recording box. You can set an upper limit or just leave it at the maximum. And then you can also set a recording duration. For example, like maybe you only want to record the first hour of a conversation. After that, you really don't care. So you can set a recording duration. All right. Now you can also specify if a message will be played when the recording is started, rather than relying on the user or the agent to specify that the call is being recorded. There are a lot of places where it's a legal requirement that you tell people if the call is being recorded or not. So you're obligated to specify that, and you can have that done automatically by the system. You can have it play a message. For example, you can say like, this call will be recorded for quality purposes. As far as the storage options, you can, at the end of the call, once it's recorded, you can send it directly to an FTP server for long-term storage. All right, and it can also be recorded locally on the Epygi PBX. And once the recording space gets full, at some point it will fill up. Okay, you can choose to just stop, don't delete any recordings. Just generate a system event log and just let somebody know that the recording box is now full. Optionally, you can record the calls locally on the Epygi PBX, and when the recording space gets full, you can delete some of the older recordings and just continue on. And that's useful. So let's say if you only want to record calls for reference purposes, and you only want to keep them on the system for a few weeks at a time, and then after that you really don't care about saving them long term. And then the best option is probably the last one, which is at the end of the call, the recording gets sent to an FTP server, and it's stored also stored locally on the system. And after a period of time, once the recording the box gets full, you can just delete some of the older recordings and continue to record when it gets full. It's easy to configure. You can choose which calls will be recorded. So there's two methods to do that. There's a very quick and easy method where you simply select the extension to be recorded and enable that. There's also more of an advanced method where it's Offers a flexible configuration, so you can specify if incoming calls are going to be recorded or outgoing calls are going to be recorded, and you can even specify which dialing patterns will be recorded. So for example, maybe you only want to record domestic and international calls or national calls, but you're not necessarily interested in recording the internal calls, so you can specify a pattern. So for example, like if you dial a 10-digit phone number, you want that call to be recorded, but not necessarily a local 3 or 4-digit extension. Some other options, you can each extension or group of extensions can record to a specific recording box. So for example, like maybe the sales department, all their calls are going to be recorded to a specific recording box, whereas the support team, their calls might get recorded to a separate recording box. An extension can, you can specify whether the extension is going to, you can choose whether it be manually toggled when the call is to be recorded or not. So maybe you've got certain users, they only want to record when they want to have the call recorded. So you can do that for them. You can offer that option. All right, well, the recording is as far as the storage and playback. When the recordings are saved on the Epygi PBX, you can log into the Epygi PBX using the recording box extension and password, and then you select the file and that you're going to play, and you can play it or download it if you want. You can save it. If the recordings are saved to the FTP server, then you can connect to the FTP server and index to the file. Now, by default, we are going to store those files on a directory on the FTP server. It'll look something like like what you see there, where you might have the initial folder called call recordings, and then you can specify the date, the hour, and in the each hour it'll have all the calls that were recorded during that time frame, so you can just click on those and play it. And it'll have information about and that file name is flexible as well as far as what you have on that name. Typically you'll have of course the timestamp and maybe the caller ID of the call. As I mentioned, the call recording is a licensed feature. It is available on all the Epygi IP PBXs, and the ports can be added as follows. You can add the call recording ports. Remember, a single a port is just a single call that's recorded. Okay, so 2 ports. If you have 2 ports on a system for call recording, that means you can have 2 calls that would be first 2 calls would be recorded. The third call would not. Okay, so you just want to have enough recording ports available for the number of calls that you need to have recorded. All right, and so you can add those in increments of 2, 4, 8, 16, or 32, up to the maximum total ports available for the particular PBX. All right, so for example, the QX200 can have up to 20 simultaneous calls recorded. All right, you'll see there on the right-hand side, there's a couple of products, the UC80, the UC, and the UC20. Those are sold in South Africa solely by MIA Distribution under the iServe by Epygi IP PBX brand. And also, the UC80 actually comes default with 4 ports of recording already enabled. Okay, what I'd like to do now is I'm going to connect to the system. This is a QX200, and we're just going to set up a recording extension so that we can actually begin show how easy it is to configure on that recording extension. And so what we'll do is we're going to configure the recording box, and we'll show you how the calls are recorded, how they get recorded. Okay, so we're connected to the QX200, and I'm going to go to my extensions. Okay, so in this system, I do have the call recording license enabled. Let me just go to setup here real quick. License features, and you can see down here for call recording, it's down towards the bottom. It says I've got call recording enabled. The license is enabled for 8 users. That means 8 simultaneous calls will be recorded. All right, and so on the dashboard, if I make a phone call, it would show that that call was actually being recorded. Okay, we're going to make a call here locally. Just refresh the dashboard, and you can see that this call is now being recorded. So it's already been set up on this particular extension 100, and it is recorded. All right, so let's see how you set it up. So we'll go to extensions, and I'm going to add a new extension. All right, we mentioned extension 700, so let's use it. So extension 700, as you should be familiar with the QX. You know, we use our extensions for not just user extensions and auto attendance, but also for features, for example, like call park, paging. Well, also there's one down here at the bottom called a recording box. All right, so that's going to be an extension to which where the calls will be recorded to. All right, you got some general settings in here. Maybe I want to enable the password, and I'll show you how that password is actually used. Yes, it mentions that it's a weak password. I understand that, but I'm going to enable this allow GUI. That's the user login. Okay, so I'm going to enable that, and you'll see the purpose of that here shortly. All right, then I go down to the recording box settings. Okay, there's a the maximum recordings. You may want to set that. So that's how many total recordings that you're going to save in this recording box. Okay, so there's let's say extension. Maybe I only want to save up to a total of 400 recordings, and you could set the recording duration, single recording duration. Okay, so maybe I only want to record calls up to, say, an hour. And then you could choose whether there's an announcement that's going to be played that specifies that the call will be recorded. And if you wanted, you can upload and record your own greeting message there. Also didn't mention on the in the general settings, there is a percentage of memory, okay, that's going to be allocated to call recording. And yes, call recording does require a lot of memory for those calls that are recorded. All right, so we do recommend, if you're doing call recording, that you have an SD card. Actually, in all instances, we always recommend that you install an SD card, at least 8 gigabit, 16 gigabit, 32 gigabit, maybe. That's all you might need. But in all installations, always install an SD card. It's beneficial, especially when you're doing your software updates. But it also gives you additional memory for saving or storing the recordings if you're going to save them locally on the system. And as percentage of total memory, that's basically how much memory you're allocating to this particular call recording box. How much percentage of the overall total memory that you're going to allow just for this particular recording box. All right. Okay, then you've got the recording storage settings. So you're going to specify when the call is recorded, whether you're going to send it over to an FTP server. And then, as I mentioned previously, if you're going to, simple local means you're just going to record it locally on the system. Once it gets full, or you reach the maximum recording count, for example, like 300, it'll just stop recording and it'll generate a system event log. It'll let somebody know that the recording box is now full. There's a cyclic, what we call cyclic local mode. They're just going to be kept locally on the system, just like the simple mode. But when the space becomes full or you reach the maximum recording count, it'll simply just delete the oldest, say 20% of the recordings, and then continue to record going forward. But more likely, you're probably going to use the mixed mode, which offers a combination of the two. So the system, the call gets recorded, it gets sent to an FTP server, and then it also gets locally stored on the PBX. And then when the space becomes full, it simply deletes the oldest recordings. Of course, if you're going to the FTP, an FTP server, you specify the server name, the port number, and if it requires a username and password before it can log in. And then it'll put it on a directory. This is a flexible format here that's going to have the date, the month, the year, the date, the month, and then it also has a for the file itself, it has a timestamp, and those are flexible. You can change that up whatever you want it to be. Okay, so these are, for right now, we'll just do the cyclic mode and save that. Okay, the next step is to choose which extensions are going to be recorded. Okay, excuse me. So for that, I can go to telephony, and under there's a call recording option here at the top. And what you're looking at is the very basic method where you simply just choose an extension, and you choose and toggle it whether that extension will be recorded or not. So you just simply enable the checkbox and it, enable or disable that extension for recording. You can see here I've already have some extensions. The initial call we made was extension 100, and that call gets recorded to the call recording box of extension 200. Okay, so I've got another extension here. Let's change this one, extension 101. I'm going to do an edit on this one, and here's your options. You can do it automatic, so at the beginning of the call it'll automatically start recording, or manual, where the user can specify when they want their calls to be recorded. I could also set a call duration limit, a recording duration limit, and then you can specify which recording box the call will be saved to. All right, so in this case, I'm going to save it to extension. This one will go to extension 700, which is the one we just added. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a phone call. I do have a phone here beside me, and we'll go ahead and make a call. All right, so we're going to call to our Epygi auto attendant, and you can see that the call is currently being recorded. Here's extension 101. It dialed our main number, and you can see that the call is being recorded. Okay, there's also a button on this phone. Actually, I'm going to hang up this call and we'll start a new call here. Let me just refresh this. All right, let me have a new call. All right, so if I refresh it, I've also got a button on the phone where I can toggle whether or not that call is recorded or not. So right now it's being recorded, and if I toggle it, which I just did, you can see that it's no longer recording. Okay, if I toggle it again and refresh, you can see now the call is once again being recorded. All right, so the user, if you give them that opportunity, they can record those, choose whether or not that call is recorded or not. All right, and that's done under your interfaces, your IP lines, when you actually go to configure the IP phone you do have on this extension 101 on the right hand side, you got of course you have the phone model. Well, here you have the programmable keys. And if you're familiar with our programming, you can simply click on the MPK link and it'll take you to a page where you can configure the individual keys. Well, one of those drop downs is the option to record, and then I put a label on it. So I do have that flexibility. All right, so that call was recorded. Okay, I'm logged in as admin. Okay, so if I go to let's go to the extensions. Okay, you can see extension 700 down here was used as a recording box. It's the one we created. And if I click on the little icon there, it looks like a microphone, I guess it is. You can see that each of the calls that I toggled that was recorded. And from this page, I can delete the recording if I don't want to have it there. You can see how much free space is available on this page, how many recordings I have, and I can also click on it and play it. So this was okay, so you can see that the call is, so it plays back right away. I can also download it and save it locally to my system. Now, I am logged in as admin, so obviously you wouldn't want to give the users full access to the admin login. Now, I did enable the login from the page. You can see from when we initially configured the extension, I gave it the GUI login. Well, on the main login page of the QX, the user can log in with their extensions and extension password. Well, the extension is 700 for the recording box, and I enter the password, and it gives me the interface where the users can actually see the recordings and they can play them back locally if they want. All right, so keep in mind each user can have their own recording box, or maybe a department can have their own recording box. So that part is up to you. All right, then. I think that's about it. That's about all we wanted to demonstrate today. Feel free to contact us, contact our sales team if you need pricing on the call recording. You can contact your distributor or our sales team, and they can get that information out to you. You can also reach out to us. Our contact phone number 972-692-1166, and you always have access to. You always contact myself as well, or sales at epygi.com. All right, I thank you very much. Thank you for joining, and best of luck to you.